I can think of that were witnessed and photographed in the last few months of elephants attacking, in one case, a young buffalo bull. In another case, it was a buffalo cow, I believe. And both times, the buffaloes were actually speared and killed in the attack. It's something that we're going to start seeing more and more frequently as the animals become under more pressure from the drought, and competition for water, for access to water, becomes fairly fierce. And elephants are grumpy. They don't like to share their water sources. Well, they can be grumpy at some point. And I mentioned earlier that they will chase away the little animals like wild dogs and impala, and even waterbuck at times. Look at how this poor buffalo bull is struggling. I can't tell if it's because that mud is so thick and sticky or if it's got a limp as well. I think it's just because that mud is so difficult to navigate through. Shame, displaced from his afternoon napping area. It's also not unheard of for animals to get stuck in mud like this. Less common with the larger creatures like the buffalo, but even then, it does occur occasionally. Well done, buffalo. Managed to escape the elephants. Definitely not worth tackling a bull of this size. He does look perfectly at peace. He didn't really show all that much aggression towards the buffalo. He was just after food around the spot where the buffalo was lying down. It was interesting watching the interaction of that bull that came in and then wandered off with one of the trio, moved into a different area, and we see some tremendously entertaining interactions between the different elephants. But a mind was wondering, do elephants ever mark their territories? And they don't, and the reason behind that is that elephants don't actually have territories. It's marabou going to soar across the skies. Awesome. Enormous wingspans. One of the largest birds that we actually have out here in the Sabi Sands. And one, despite its ugly appearance, that has come under threat in recent years, just like the vultures, particularly due to poisoning of carcasses. So nice to see them wandering through. Here comes our buffalo gentleman. It was just sticky mud that he was struggling through. Shame, boy. Your date at the spa is done. It's time for you to move away. The elephants have pushed him out. And the water holes at the moment are just pumping with action. There's even, I thought I saw a bushbuck, but I think it might have moved off. I've seen the nyala that are wandering around. Oh, that one there, yes. I'll just see when it turns. Munching away at the green grass of the seep line. No more alarm calls from the guinea fowl. They've relaxed a bit. I think it was definitely the monkeys. The monkeys were tormenting them, chasing them around a bit. Always worthwhile following alarm calls of guinea fowl if you hear them, particularly when they sound incredibly frantic. As I said earlier, they have led me to spectacular leopard sightings before. And Brent giving us a lovely overview of all of the animals around the dam, including this waterbuck male, 2 waterbuck bulls that are awaiting their chance to come down and enjoy the dam. This group of waterbuck, there's a couple of large males and there's quite a few females as well. The females have moved into the denser vegetation, but we see them pretty much every time we come around the Arathusa Dam. 3 males that I counted. They're starting to wander down into the clearing. Beautiful large bulls. Our bulls have had a very relaxed approach to this afternoon's time spent in the dam and in the mud. And Rudy wanted to know, we've seen them moving about this entire afternoon. When do elephants sleep? Do we know when elephants sleep? And they sleep at various times throughout the day and evening, usually fairly short bursts, but believe it or not, Rudy, even a large bull elephant such as this one might occasionally actually lie down to sleep. And I think he's going to go walking along towards the dam wall. I'm just going to reposition to get us a little bit closer to him, to where he's going to pop out on the road. Rudy, even a large bull such as this can lie down for a short period of time. Quite often they'll choose to lie against the banks of a termite mound, maybe against a tree, just to make the process of getting up a little bit easier. Awesome to watch. And just that gentle, slow step is capable of eating up the miles when they decide to focus their attentions and go in one direction. The calves, Rudy, will sleep more often than the adults do, just like children in human beings. The more growing they have to do, the more sleep that they need. And they don't need to feed as constantly as the adults either, because they've got access to mom's milk. Which way are these Ellies going to decide to go? I think they might even pop onto the dam wall. Wander along that. They're going to wander along that narrow path, or they're going to make their way up over the dam wall. I was talking about, let me finish off my sentence and my answer to Rudy's question about elephants sleeping. If they're not lying down, they very often doze for a couple of minutes at a time on their feet, and it's very common to see, particularly with large bulls like the one that we have, and some of the elephants that we have here, they quite often rest their heads on the fork of a tree or rest their heads against a marula. Very entertaining to watch an elephant in a deep, relaxed state. And they can sleep incredibly well. I've encountered elephants fast asleep in the bush before, whilst on foot, that have not even stirred as I've walked past them. They have not even been aware of my presence. There we go, it's swimming time. This is awesome. Right down chest deep. It's not uncommon for elephants to submerge themselves completely when they have the opportunity. Unfortunately, the Arathusa Dam is no longer deep enough for such games. When I first started working here, we had a wonderful sighting with a with an elephant bull in Buffelshoek Dam that submerged himself, was rolling over in the water. They are actually fairly capable swimmers. At the moment, though, they're taking the opportunity to stretch out and grab some of the juiciest plants and cooling down at the same time. Much to the displeasure on the right of the African jacana, that's just to the right of where that elephant is. Here it is. Dodging and diving. You hear them sloshing through the water. Now, I know that I'm not alone in the fact that I really truly enjoy a big elephant bull sighting. And Kelly, who's watching on Twitter, Kelly was wondering, do I prefer male elephant sighting or female elephant sightings, or is every sighting just a little bit different? I'm trying to think what my best answer for this question is, Kelly. I would say on foot, definitely. There's nothing like a large elephant bull. They tend to be particularly relaxed, far more relaxed than the breeding herds are. You've got less chance of finding yourself with an elephant suddenly behind you or on the side with male elephants, just because they move about generally on their own or in small bachelor groups. So on foot, I would say elephant bulls. And probably if I really had to choose, I guess I'd say in the vehicle I also enjoy elephant bull sightings. The young ones tend to be either playful or entertaining, whilst the more mature gentlemen of 20 and over are beautifully relaxed and very often comfortably come across to the car to investigate and have a look at you. But Kelly, there's also, again, nothing more entertaining than a breeding herd with youngsters, and baby elephants at any age can be hugely entertaining. Waterbuck wandering into the water as well. The rest of the herd is going to be coming down shortly to join him. The first brave trailblazer picking the opposite side of the dam to the elephants. And there's the one, I've only seen that one hippo remaining in Arathusa Dam. There could be more. I've only seen this one. Most of them have moved off to the larger dams, possibly up towards Sydney's dam as well. And we've spoken before about the fact that they are being actively removed from the northern Sabi sands just because of this serious drought and the lack of space and water for them. Hello, boys. You can see how the younger bull, the one on the right, the slightly smaller one, has reacted more to our presence, not in a huge way, not in an overly aggressive or nervous way, but he's certainly given us more of a reaction than the older bull that's on the left. Every now and again he just casts a sideways glance at us, sweeps his head from side to side. And apparently it was this bull that was the same with James yesterday afternoon in the way that he approached it. And that's sort of what I meant when I said the older males tend to be a bit more comfortable in every kind of scenario. He is gorgeous. That sunken temporal region, I would say 40 plus in terms of age. So he's been there, done that, seen safari vehicles come and go throughout his entire lifetime. All kinds of memories in that brain. Well, personally, I find whenever elephants walk up to the vehicle and they have a good look at you, I always find there's a difference to looking into an elephant's eyes than any other animal. That's just my personal feeling about them. It's definitely something looking back at you. And the waterbuck making their way in. There's even some youngsters, one little calf that's the size of the impala ram that it's feeding next to. And the females delicately picking their way through the mud. Not an easy feat if you've got slightly sharper and big hooves. I see you, boy. I see you. What's up, big boy? It's okay. We're not doing anything to you. You're very big and scary, yes. But I've been sitting here the whole time. There's no aggression there from that elephant. Just keeping an eye on us. lovely gentleman is completely unconcerned, and how spectacular is that? Dust blowing in the sunset. Beautiful image. Well, we've spoken before about the fact that the breeding herds at the moment are a little bit unsettled, and the fact that it might have something to do with the presence of some of the larger males that have been seen with them more often than they have in the past, at least from my time, at the start of my time at Djuma, which was around July last year. And Tony was wondering, would a big male elephant ever kill a calf? Or would the mother be able to protect it? And if it did happen, if a mother did lose its calf, look at the way it's scooping that sand up. Sorry, Tony, I'll be with you 1 second. It just always fascinates me the way that the multiple uses that they can put their trunks to, including scooping up trunkfuls of sand. The next part of Tony's question was, would an elephant cow come straight back into season, ankle scratch, like in the same way a leopard or a lion might do? Hello, boy. He is stunning. He is going to come up a little bit closer to say hello, I think. Again, no aggression. He's just letting me know that he's much bigger than I am. And he is. Hello, boy. So interesting to see the difference in his tusks in this elephant. The longer, thinner and pointier left one versus the thicker and more blunt right tusk. A perfect example of the slave and the master tusks. One tusk that is used more frequently than the other. What's interesting about this elephant is it looks as though, judging from the way in which the groove runs along his left-hand tusks, and yes, the right-hand tusk is shorter, it looks as though he breaks plants, which is what causes that groove in the tusk itself, that he breaks plants off with his left tusk, and he probably uses his right tusk more for digging. And we've spoken a lot about elephants being, the possibility of elephants being left and right-handed, and I've suggested in the past that I don't think it is as pronounced in all elephants as we necessarily think it is, but there is definitely a difference with some elephants as to what they use their tusks for. And interesting how his genetics have given him a thicker right tusk and a thinner left tusk. I just got distracted with him walking across in front of us, but I was in the middle of answering Tony's question about whether or not a male elephant will ever kill a calf. Tony, does happen. It's quite an unusual situation. And again, there's usually some kind of explanation behind it. Very seldom does a calf get crushed. What might happen is where a bull is interested in a female and the calf comes between them, he might decide that he really doesn't appreciate the presence of the calf. That happens with all mammal species that get protective over the female that they're going to be mating with. It does occur, and yes, the female will come back into estrus, not necessarily as fast as one of the cat species. That's a product of the gap between the estrus cycles. There's a difference between elephants and cats. Cats have a much shorter gap between their estrus cycles if they're not pregnant. And they've also got much shorter gestation periods. But a female, if she does lose her calf for any kind of reason, will start coming back into estrus in the next few months. You can see how he's clearly the dominant in this situation. All the other elephants moving out of his way. Well, Arathusa Dam has, I think, provided us with some spectacular scenes this afternoon, and we have certainly made the most of them. I want to go and investigate the Marakeni drainage line, find out what's happening there. And before I do, just a quick update. I did mention that the wild dogs were on Simabili, but that I wasn't able to hear exactly where they were. And we'll keep an ear out on the radio, and I'll keep you updated if we hear any chance of them coming back either down into Arathusa or back across to the east towards Djuma and Sydney's dam. while I go and investigate that, let's pop over to James for an update.
Right, so we've come back to Sydney's dam. We did a loop around where the wild dogs went into Simbambili. Clearly, Jamie's just got a great update about what they're doing. There is now a giant herd of elephants, and by this meantime, I do mean giant, herd of elephants at the dam having a drink. Definitely going to be worth just stopping, having a quick look here as the sun goes behind this lying cloud in front of us. No rain is going to come of it, I can tell. And a herd of buffalo also moving off over the dam wall. They've clearly just had a drink here as well. That's a big herd of elephants for this area. Look at that. That is spectacular. Wow. Isn't that nice? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 or so. It's not that massive, I suppose, but it is quite a big herd. Bigger than the 4 and 4 that we saw recently. Perfect time for them to be having a drink, of course. Perfect time for everybody to having a drink. Just after 6 o'clock or just before 6 o'clock. And see what happens. Oh, Kelly, while we're waiting, you're on Twitter, and interestingly, you asked Jamie, do I prefer male or female elephant sightings, or does it, are they all different and does it not make any difference? I have to go with the latter there, Kelly. I think it really depends on the sighting. I've had some wonderful herd sightings where, females and youngsters are all around the vehicle paying me no attention whatsoever. But a massive bull sighting like that sighting that Jamie's just had, they are so huge, and you won't get quite the same impression that you do seeing them live. They are so massive that they are breathtaking. And to see an old bull like that, and 2 old bulls like that especially, is just a breathtaking experience. But to see a tiny baby elephant newborn with its mother totally relaxed around us is equally as breathtaking. So it really does just depend on the situation. Something is going on here. They've smelt something or they've seen something. You can see the one on the far left has lifted her head up, opened her ears out. She seems to be, she's still not happy. It might just be that they're unfamiliar with each other. Such a big herd might be just like the others. They might not be the same herd. They might not live together all the time. But maybe they've caught wind of the other pack of dogs, the Investec pack. Maybe they've spotted a crocodile that's in the water there. It's quite possible that there could be a crocodile there. They wouldn't be probably wading across there, the youngsters. Well, they wouldn't be in any danger from a crocodile. I'm going to reverse slightly. The female on the far left, Brian, has just got her ears right up. Just want to see if she can't see something. Maybe a leopard, maybe some lions, maybe a hyena. No, I don't see anything in front of her there. Simply moving off towards where their ears were opened. Wild dogs, of course, wouldn't stop them. There's some water back there, yeah. Normally react like that to waterbuck, but perhaps because everything is so sort of water stressed, they don't want anything else to drink their meager water resources. That's possible. Yeah, the waterbuck have skedaddled off, haven't they? So I was mentioning crocodiles, and it's possible that a crocodile could live in a waterhole like this, especially when the water is so sort of low in the rivers. I think I can actually see a crocodile, Brian. I might be quite wrong. Can you see the hole at the far end there? Far right-hand side, you can see a hole. in the bank. That's it. Right, now you zoom in on that. There. Can you see in front there? Drop it there. That's it. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think that's a little crocodile, everyone. Now, it's just a wonderful, wonderful example of why, even if you have never seen a crocodile in a water hole here, you do not go swimming here ever. Because one of those beastly reptiles will come from nowhere. You will suddenly find it in your water hole, in your swimming pool, there, and it's gone under the water. Now, should you decide to do some lengths in there, it would be the very last lengths you ever did. Now, that's purely a function of the fact that the rivers are drying out. Nye, he will say that's impossible. Can't wait to tell him. In fact, I'm going to ask Jerry to tell Jamie right now so that she can tell Brent. Ha 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 ha. Apparently they're pretending not to hear the radio on Arathusa. How convenient. So I was saying a little bit earlier that I didn't think that this dam was pumped. That said, there is a pan to the left-hand side there, which you would have seen when the water buck were just behind it. Now, that pan is very clearly pumped. It might be pumped from the dam, but I suspect it's pumped from a water hole with very clean water. And the overspill from that, of course, will go into the dam. That won't be a lot. And it won't be enough to keep the dam full, I don't think.
But I wonder what was happening with that elephant herd around Sydney's dam. While he was checking that out, I've come across to the western boundary of Arathusa. You never know when the Anderson male might decide to stroll along. The biggest leopard, or rumoured to be one of the biggest leopards the Sabi Sands has ever seen. I've yet to see him. That remains unconfirmed, although Brent has seen him and he thinks he's enormous. Might even have been bigger than it. What is it? The Campan male. Campan male. Definitely bigger, says Brent. I'm still waiting for my opportunity to see him and get to experience that. I'm excited. It will happen one day. It could even be this evening. This is one of the areas. This used to be sort of the line in the sand that was drawn between Tingana and the Anderson male, the two big dominant male leopards in this area. Our marabou storks have moved across in this direction. They would have spent the day practicing what's known as eurothermoregulation, which is basically they poop on their legs and it cools them down. It's why you'll see with most of the stork species, on hot days their legs are coated with white. The kidney is working hard to conserve water. That's still an interesting method, an interesting approach to coping with Africa's summer heat. It seems as though James has fixed his camera, sorted things out. So let's pop back over there and find out what was happening with those elephants at Sydney's dam.
Sorry about that. Bit of camera trouble. Elephants now leaving the dam, but coming towards us, which is quite exciting. I'm not sure they'll come all the way across this clearing, but let's watch what happens. Now, there was a question there about wagging tails on elephants and whether or not that indicates some kind of mood, and that was from Mandy and Julia, all the way from the west coast of the United States of America in Los Angeles, city of angels. And you want to know about whether the tail swinging on an elephant means anything about its mood. Mandy, and Lorraine, I would say almost certainly not. I would say it's probably entirely to do with how many flies they have on their backs. That's basically what that tail is for. It's used to swat flies and things off the skin when they irritate the skin. It's got a long piece of hair on the back, like an really sort of, well, it's quite a sparse fly swatter, I guess, but probably quite effective. Very coarse hairs on the edge of the tail there, and its predominant role is as a parasite remover. Do you see that elephant trip there, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful stuff. Beautiful, beautiful, peaceful herd. And again, I said this before, and I'll probably say it another 150 times, but the bird song this year is very much quieter than it would be normally. It's like, you know what it's like? It's like if you're listening to an orchestra, and instead of having 8 first violins and 8 second violins and 16 violas and, you know, an enormous brass section, it's like you've taken sort of 2/3 of each section of the orchestra away. So you've got the full kind of texture of the orchestra, but it's just much more subdued. Got all the different kinds of birds, but they're just a lot quieter than they would be normally, and not as many of them calling. Now, our old friend Mr. Moustache, who seems to bob about the place like a cork in a hurricane. You were in Iceland a little while back, then you were in, where were you? Then you were in Michigan, now you're in Minnesota, Mr. Moustache. You must be absolutely exhausted. And you want to know what age it is that an elephant will have its first calf. An elephant could conceivably fall pregnant for the first time at around 9 years of age. Now, given the gestation period, there's some buffalo in the background there. Must watch out for the crocodile. He wouldn't try and take one of them, but they'd get a fright if he popped his head out the water. Given a gestation period of 22 months, Mr. Moustache, the earliest birth normally for an elephant is probably around 11. It's not unusual for them to wait much longer than that, though. Now, we keep seeing these little fragments of buffalo herds. That's a tiny buffalo herd, and I suspect it's a function of them being scattered by the lions that have been around the place of late. Question from a long-time viewer, Emily Wallington in Greenside, Johannesburg, very beautiful leafy suburb where there is perhaps a storm brewing as we speak on this Friday afternoon. You want to know why there is a hole at the back end of the dam wall here. Is there something living in there? Emily, I think given the level of the dam, that it is highly unlikely there's anything living in there. It could have been used perhaps as a burrow by a crocodile, you know, to lay some eggs in. But of course that would only have happened as the dam level went down. So I don't know that there's anything in there at the moment. I'm not sure. It definitely looks like it's been excavated. It could have been excavated, of course, recently by an aardvark or something like that, and then made larger by a warthog, because the dam level, of course, has been down around about this for about 3 weeks now. So it's probably quite dry in there, but not a very clever place to make a home. Thank you for your question, Emily. I hope Johannesburg is marvelous this evening. There's a buffalo coming across the dam wall. Right, Sarah, you're in North Carolina, where crocodiles are obviously not thick on the ground. You probably have the odd alligator lurking about the place. I know your southern neighbors have definitely got plenty of alligators there. You want to know how long or how far a crocodile would have to have traveled to get into this dam from the rivers. Sarah, the nearest flowing river at the moment is the Sabi River, and that is probably, as the crow flies now, almost 25 kilometers So in miles, that would be, shall we say, roughly 15 miles down to the Sabi River. So that's quite far. But a crocodile can walk up to 50 kilometers. So, you know, more than twice that distance, up to sort of 25, 28 miles, if it has to move between water points. And I suspect that's what this one has done. It has disappeared now, after the attentions of the hippo that's just near the buffalo there. I think that crocodile has thought better of being there. And I'm getting a word from the final control that they think the crocodile that I spotted could perhaps be that hippo. Brian, what do you think?
I say nay.
I say nay as well, I'm afraid. And that's not just pride speaking. I'm pretty sure that that was a crocodile, just from its shape and its general sort of activity level. Hippo, of course, if they see a crocodile like that, will go and investigate and chase it away. And James Taylor, you're on Twitter and you're backing the final control. James, this is obviously the last time I will ever answer a question from you. Sorry about that. I am joking, don't worry, James. I will still answer questions from you. I am deeply hurt, though. Gerda, you say if there isn't a crocodile in here, we will have crocodile cheers of joy from Brent Leo Smith. Yes, we will. We will also never hear the end of it. So please don't tell him, anyone. I'm still pretty sure that we did see a croc. I don't think that was the same hippo. It wouldn't be unheard of to see a crocodile in a dam like this. Right, the elephants are moving off. We are going to do the same. We're probably going to head down towards... I haven't decided quite yet whether we should go to the hyena den or make our way to quarantine in the hopes that the wild dogs will come out of Simbambalai and perhaps head down there. I will make up my mind eventually, but while I'm doing that and prevaricating, let's head across to Jamie and Brent, see what they're doing, and I'll catch up with you just now.
While James decides which direction he's going to take next on Djuma and chats a little bit about that crocodile that you saw, I'm deciding, or trying to make sure that I don't go wandering off Arathusa property itself. I always get a little bit confused in this northwestern corner of the elephant roadblock. I'm not even going to think about moving the silver cluster leaf tree. I don't even want to talk about it. It was a traumatizing experience. I'm not going to repeat it. Everybody duck. Escaping unscathed around that tree. Hello, Impala. A couple of ewes that still look a bit pregnant to me. In fact, I think that one might still be. She's just wandered behind the bush. Where did she go? I think moving off a little bit further up towards the weeping wattle. So a couple of still pregnant ewes in this area. There she is. And some late impala lambs are due. So for new viewers, something worth sticking around for, apart from just all of the general wonderful aspects of our live safaris. You could be seeing some brand new impala lambs. I've seen two recently around Djuma. The last few babies coming through the final sort of birthing climax, and then back to preparing for May's rut, where the males start to compete and chase the females around. It's highly entertaining. It's probably the noisiest that the impala ever are. Very vocal at that time of year. What road am I on, Brent? Out of curiosity. Boundary road. Well, that's good. That's definitely a positive. That is where I want to be. Towards Boundary Pan. This is wonderful news. I got a new phone and I lost my Arathusa map, and most of our regular viewers will know that I'm never lost exactly on Arathusa. It's just sometimes I don't know exactly entirely where I am, or at least the name of the road that I'm driving on. Useful to have Brent on the back. Interestingly enough, travelling along this western edge, it's very clear how much more rain they've had around here. Watching us drive along, and of course we chat about dung that we encounter fairly regularly. We often stop and move around fresh piles of dung to avoid squashing any dung beetles that might be in them, might have taken up residence. Eric, who's watching in Virginia Beach, would like to know, since there is so much of the dung lying around and being utilized, or not necessarily utilized, particularly at the moment of the drought, by as many dung beetles as we might see in the wetter seasons, are there any uses that the local people can put the dung to? For example, insulation or fuel. Now, the first thing that springs immediately to mind, and Eric, I don't know if you ever watched some of these drives with Steph. It was quite a while ago, it was a good couple of months ago, where Steph constructed a coffee tin with some holes in it, and he put elephant dung in and burnt it in order to ward off the flies. Now, I question how effective that really was. He certainly hasn't tried it again recently, although Steph seems to be particularly bothered by flies for some reason. I haven't seen him do it recently. I don't know how effective it was in the end. It certainly didn't seem to have any positive effects. Update from Tristan. Tristan, what are those position of those Madash? Copy that, thanks. We just saw some marlers sprinting by. We're just wondering if it might have been them. No sign. I wonder what it was that spooked those impala. Don't see anything coming through, and there's no alarm calls. Could be one of the males. And as we watch that impala sprint past, trying to have a look at their general body language as we go along, which direction they're looking in. They don't seem to be looking back to where that impala sprinted from. That high-speed race, Kat was wondering how fast an impala can run, and Kat, the answer is around the region of about a 50 to 60 kilometer speeds, probably up to 70 at top speed. That's in miles would be between 25 to close to 30, or just over 30 miles an hour. Very, very rapid. Again, it's one of those interesting things. They can probably outrun something like a lion or a cheetah, or lion or a leopard, or even a cheetah, by maintaining those speeds and exhibiting a bit more stamina than those big cats might have. There's a lovely kudu bull in here, but he's hiding away in quite dense vegetation. I don't think we're going to get a nice view of him. The wild dogs, on the other hand, we saw those wild dogs sprinting after the impala. Let's go and have a look if they're looking off. They also look to be on alert. There we go. This off-road track has been blocked. I'm going to come through into this open space. I'm just listening to the radio updates at the same time. I got an update from Tristan, and I wanted to just get that update from him as to where the wild dogs are. They're still on Simbambili and actually quite far from where we are now. Definitely wasn't that particular pack of wild dogs chasing impala. You never know, though. Here could you come around the back of the termite mounds? Accompanied by the sound of the emerald spotted wood dove. And speaking about local beliefs and local uses, there's a traditional belief that it's bad luck to listen to the entire call of the emerald spotted wood dove. Lovely, beautiful little dove with, believe it or not, emerald spots on its back. And speaking of traditional uses, Eric, I wasn't actually finished answering your question about elephant dung or various types of dung. To the best of my knowledge, it's not used as any type of insulation. Can't think of it ever having been used in that particular case. And it's not really burnt as fuel per se, but it is used to start fires. It can be used as kindling. Obviously, it has to be dry elephant dung. And there's also some beliefs that it will help to cure a head cold or get rid of a headache if you sniff it. And that, in that particular instance, I have tried that. I've tried burning elephant dung when I've had a headache and a cold and sniffed it to see if it will help me at all. All it ended up doing was giving me more of a headache, but maybe I just put the wrong pile of elephant dung. It's not necessarily that far-fetched to imagine that it could work in that way. If you think about it, there are trees out here. We've discussed multiple examples. Goodness, the elephants have been through here. Creating roadblocks. Yes, there are certain types of trees with painkiller properties. For example, the sicklebush bark, the boerbean bark, types of tree that have been proven to have nice medicinal benefits. And of course, if you hark back to the invention of the aspirin, it stems from concoctions imitating the bark of a willow tree. At this point, as far as I know, most aspirin is artificially produced, but it has its origins in the pain-killing properties of willow tree bark. Elephant dung could, in theory, work the same if you get the right pile of elephant dung. An elephant that's eaten those plants with those properties. I think we might knock the antenna here. I want to knock Jigger's antenna off as well. I'm trying to think if there's any other traditional beliefs relating to dung. And Eric, I believe it was Eric who suggested the dung, I know it was Eric who suggested the dung recognition challenge. He wanted to, and I don't know if I even mentioned it to Brent, he wanted to blindfold us, or have us blindfolded, and then test each dung, see if we can identify the different types of dung. I'm pretty sure we could manage all of them.
Many of Eric tastes the dung first.
That was originally his suggestion as well. He suggested a taste or field test, at which point I demonstrated the boktrolspoch, spitting of impala dung or whatever particular dung might be your preference. I think spitting impala dung is part of the game. It's probably the best way forward. And quite aerodynamically shaped. The aim of that particular game is to spit dung as far as possible and beat whoever you are competing against. I happen to be not so good at it. I somehow imagine Brent is highly successful at that particular game.
Personal best, 3 meters.
3 meters? Really? That's impressive.
World record here.
What is the world record?
11 and change.
11 meters? No way! That's ridiculous. 11 meters, that's about 33 feet that somebody managed to spit a piece of impala poo. Now, when Brent and myself grew up as children in South Africa, this was one of the games that we played, and it was met with some disapproval in certain spheres, but it was just something we were raised doing. Neither of us have suffered any ill effects. You don't necessarily swallow the dung, although sometimes it does happen by mistake, particularly if you get overly enthusiastic and you take a deep breath in to expel the dung as far as possible. And you usually try and pick the nice dry pieces that aren't fresh and sticky. So essentially all you're doing really is eating a little bit of dirt. But that is boktrolspoch, another traditional use for dung. And if you haven't played dodgeball, with elephant dung before in a riverbed or something like that, which is essentially just dodgeball but with dung, then you're definitely missing out on one of life's greatest pleasures. And I've just seen some fresh dung, and Brent has spotted the elephants responsible for leaving the dung that we've just been chatting about. In a very, very dense block. I'm going to reposition so we can get a better view. Just wanted to show you what we were looking at. I think I'm going to try and loop around. There's a road that runs just to the south of where they are. That might be our best approach. Generally, when you go crunching after elephants, if you're going through thick vegetation, they tend to move off ahead of you. So obviously we try not to off-road after them unless we've got a nice clear open space to make it nice and easy. This road does loop around and it should get us some better views. Maybe for the rest of the herd as well. Some of these places must be absolutely stunning. In rainy season, there's some beautiful pans in this area. While I try to get a view of these elephants, let's have a look at from the biggest to the tiniest little creature. Let's see what James has found.
I suppose the tiniest little creature out here might be considered some sort of protozoan or bacterium found inside the gut of this very tiny little carnivore called a dwarf mongoose. And if you are a new viewer, I know there are a few of you watching today, this is Africa's smallest carnivore. So it looks like a little rat. He's not in fact related to rats at all, rather more closely related to things like hyenas or the mongoose. And quintessentially, look at it standing there exactly like a, Brian?
Meerkat.
Exactly. Just like a meerkat, which I'm sure many of you have seen on the TV. Very closely related, same family. So sweet. And this is the smallest example of mongoose that we get here. The other social ones we get are called the banded mongoose. And then we get a slender mongoose, which is a bit bigger and lives in pairs or alone. And then also a white-tailed mongoose, which is a big mongoose species that is nocturnal. The larger they get, the more alone they seem to be. Look at that. Isn't that sweet? And they keep very genteel hours. They're not night owls. They don't get up early, so this will be their home. They'll be living in this termite mound. This is an old disused termite mound, well, disused by termites, well used by trees and grasses, possibly snakes, and definitely the odd warthog has lived here at, excuse me, one time or the other. And now it is home to this little troop of dwarf mongoose. Beautiful. So when I say they keep, there's something dive bombing there, Brian. I'm just going to go forward a bit. There are hornbills and drongos dive bombing something in the ground there. I wonder if they aren't dive bombing either the mongoose. See the hornbill on the ground there? It was bombing something. There, beautiful yellow-billed hornbill. He's got something. He had something in his beak. Has he got something in his beak there? No. What a stunning shot of that bird sitting on what is known as a buffalo thorn. You can see a little breeze blowing up from the southeast. And again, a very quiet end to the day. There's also a magpie shrike that seems to be missing its tail there. They've normally got a slightly longer tail than that. Definitely missing a piece of it, possibly just a juvenile, having just fledged. And they're communal nesting birds. They live in a little flock. And that one is making quite a juvenile noise, as if to say, where are the rest of you? I'm all alone here. There, that's the normal call, that beautiful plaintive whistle. You know what they were bombing? Brian, they were bombing the mongoose. See, the mongoose are now on the floor. They're just exactly where that hornbill was. Look at them there, they're foraging there. And Chris Applegate, yes, very nice comment. You say they look like ferrets. Now, if I'm not mistaken, a ferret is more closely related to a weasel, and a weasel is in a slightly different family from the mongoose. But yes, they do look like ferrets. I wonder if there aren't some harvested termites there that they might be eating. Perhaps a scorpion burrow that they're excavating. They will love to eat scorpions. I'm just looking at Brian for Mike's question. Mike, you're in Florida and you want to know if these dwarf mongoose have got similar noses to meerkats. Brian sort of indicates yes, a little bit. Brian, of course, filmed meerkats extensively, and so he knows them very well. Quite similar. They're the same family. I mean, they're just a different genus of the same family. See them all here. They're all quite close by now, and there's a drongo coming in. They're all still foraging here. It's quite late for them to be out. They won't be out after dark. They like to be inside the mound by the time it gets dark, and they'll only come out again when the sun touches the surface. There's the drongo, when the sun touches the surface of the mound. Isn't he a beautiful bird? They often come to the ground at this time of the night. I'm not sure why. When I used to live up near a place called Palaboa, I used to go running in the late evening as it was getting dark. And often the last thing that I would see on the road was flocks of these drongos. Isn't he lovely? Now, drongos are found throughout the world. Well, not throughout the old world. They're found all the way into India, where they've got 5 or 6 different drongo species. Here we have 2. And this one is the fork-tailed version. And yeah, you can see the little mongoose knocking about on the ground underneath him. What he'll be hoping that they do, what the drongo is hoping that they're going to do, is to unearth some insects that he can then steal. You'll find them following animals from as big as elephants down obviously to as small as these little dwarf mongoose. So as they move along and they dig in burrows, perhaps they'll unearth a grub or 2, or perhaps they'll even unearth a wasp, something like that. And the drongos will then fly down, swoop in and hawk them out, quick as a flash, and disappear up into the safety of a tree like that. Hello Gerda, you're obviously an aficionado of safari, and you can perhaps hear a squirrel alarm calling. There isn't a squirrel alarm calling, Gerda, and you want to know if it was alarm calling, would it alarm call because of these mongoose? I've never seen a squirrel alarm call because of these mongoose. Certainly a larger mongoose like a slender mongoose maybe, but these are not tree climbers, and so I think as long as you are in a tree and you're a squirrel, you're pretty safe from one of these chaps. There, he's found something delicious. So I don't think a squirrel will alarm call at a mongoose. Isn't that wonderful? This, of course, is when you see the best stuff, when you sit for a while and things just start to unfold. There's another magpie shrike, replaced the drongo on exactly the same perch. And Brian's just spotted the rest of the flock. They're all there. That's a full-length tail. Those are 2 adults there, part of the flock, probably looking to roost in that thick greenery there where they won't be spotted. Do you think they've got a nest in there, Brian? No, I don't think they do. I think they'll probably just think about roosting or fighting. They're having an argument. Oh, there's the youngster on the left. Obviously, you can see that. Begging. Still wants food. Mother's saying, go feed yourself. This is fantastic to see. That really is very, very special. Little baby being disciplined, begging and begging, and mother saying, I'm not going to feed you. It's time you went off and did something useful on your own. Another youngster there. That's just fantastic. Wow. So as I was saying, especially around this time of the day, if you find yourself sitting quietly, that's when things just start to unfold around you, like these mongoose running around. We've had drongos, we've had magpie shrikes, we've had hornbills, and just a wonderful atmosphere of the day drawing to a close. Quiet, you can see the inkiness of the night just starting to creep in from the eastern side of the sky. And the breeze that comes up, of course, as the sun sets, starting to flow. I've always loved that sight that you can see there, just as the night starts to just as the sun will rise from there tomorrow morning. So you can see the night rising from the same direction. I've always loved that. I remember watching it on a train once and feeling a tremendous sense of peace I get while I live out here. Right, what a fantastic sighting. Thank you, Brian. Right, we're on Hyena Road. We're quite a long way still from quarantine, so we're going to head towards there. I think if the dogs were going to come across, they probably would have by now. There you can see the western horizon, still painted a beautiful pinkish orange hue. Sorry, I'm just being a bit silent because I can suddenly hear a rattle coming from behind. I'm not sure what that is. Hello, Mark on YouTube. A really interesting question, and I'm afraid I'm unable to acquiesce to your request. You want to see a spitting beetle. I don't know what a spitting beetle is, Mark. I'm sorry about that. Can you perhaps maybe send us a picture or send us an idea of the family that it belongs to? I'm afraid I've never heard of a spitting beetle. Spitting spiders I've heard of, spitting snakes, of course, but I haven't heard of a spitting beetle. That's not to say they don't exist. So please give us a little bit more information and I'll see what we can find out here. Of course, the beetles around here have also been affected by the lack of rain, far fewer than we would see normally, far fewer insects in general than we'd see normally. Although from the collection gathering around my lamp in the night, you would never say so. And Marla, I believe you were asking about insects and drought, and definitely it's had a profound effect. The insects really do depend, seemingly, on the water, probably because they depend often on flowers and seeds to survive, and there just aren't many of those around at the moment. But like I say, it does come across, we do tend to think of droughts in a very negative way. These ecosystems have survived for millennia and millennia, going through drought, deluge and flood. And you know, long before we were here and long after we've gone, that pattern will continue, and it will make no appreciable difference to the long-term survival of the area. Yes, of course, it's difficult to watch while it's happening, but to the long-term survival of an ecosystem like this, it's just part of the endless cycle that it has been experiencing, well, probably for close on 100 million years. Kathleen in New York, a very interesting question. excuse me. A bit dusty out today. Kathleen, an interesting question. You want to know about the man-made dams and the effect that they have had on the dry riverbeds around here, and have they changed the flow of water? Well, they've most certainly changed the flow of water. That's inevitable. They can't do anything but they're not on major rivers. So they're not like it's dammed the flow of an enormous river. So I think what they do is more than have an actual effect on the flow of the rivers. I think what they do is they collect water that comes down in floods, and then the rest kind of spills over and around. And I don't think there's much more of an effect than that, to be honest. I think it would be very different if you put an enormous dam in, say, the Sand River or in the Sabi River. Then it would make a huge difference. But there's so little surface flow in these riverbeds anyway that I don't think it makes a huge difference. And certainly when they come down and flood, the dams fill up and things continue as they did before. So that would be what I think. I'm not sure how many long-term studies have been done of vegetation in completely undammed drainage lines and vegetation in others, but certainly I've been in many of both, and I can't see any appreciable difference downstream of the dams. Very clever question, thank you. Right, we're coming up to just one of those dams now, the Djuma Dam, where there is a hive of activity akin to a graveyard. Nothing going on here at the moment. We're nearly at quarantine clearings. Let's go and see if those doggies have made their way up. Oh no, there is one buffalo here. Sad soul on his own. No friends. There he is. Just over there. I'm sure the hippopotamus is still there to keep him company. The buffalo will go off on a warm night like tonight. The temperature probably won't drop below, say, 23 degrees Celsius, which is about 75, probably even more. It's probably about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. No, it's about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Temperature will be that this evening. And what that will mean is the buffalo will probably go grazing tonight as opposed to during the day when it's very hot. And then on the very cold nights in the winter, they'll graze during the day and huddle together in a nice warming pack during the night. Like penguins in the Antarctic. It's not quite as cold here though. My favorite kind of viewer is asking a question. Right, a question from Fly Gear. From as far as I can understand. Fly Gear, you don't believe necessarily that we are live. Fly Gear, you are asking a question and I'm answering it for you in real time. We are very much live. There is a buffalo. I didn't know it was here. I do know now. He's just grazing, not grazing, he's chewing his cud. And that is his dinner for the evening. Fortunately, he has to regurgitate what he ate earlier and re-eat it now for dinner. As I've said before, and this is especially for you, Fly Gear, I'm glad I don't have to do that, and I'm sure you are as well. On that note, let's head across to Jamie. She's back at Sydney's Dam. The two of us have been flogging that horse for quite some time. Let's see if she's been lucky with the dogs. I'm going to hope so. And I'm going to head on to quarantine clearings and see what I can find there. See you shortly.
We are making our way back to Sydney's Dam, just in case our luck proves to be continuing. To be honest though, it's not going to be the wild, at least that pack of wild dogs, that will make an appearance there. It sounds as though they've gone west from where they were on Simbabili, so completely away from the direction of Sydney's Dam. The reason I'm going there is as it starts to get cooler, all kinds of animals are going to start moving about. Elephants that James was looking at have crossed onto Simbabili. I can just see some grey bottoms disappearing into the bushes. Let's just investigate. I've had some really good luck at Sydney's Dam recently. You never know. You might even get to see Nkanyeni. Wait, was it Nkanyeni that you saw there? No. Which one? Shaluva. It was Shaluva that Brent saw around Sydney's Dam. Wonderful to see a leopard. And they did, by the way, they did call in, sounds like Kwetile, just to the south of the Arathusa boundary. Kwetile is a beautiful female leopard who, last time I heard, had 3 cubs. I don't know if that is still the case. She had 3 cubs around the Londolozi boundary. She's wandering back up north every now and again. let's just investigate. I know that James thinks we're flogging this horse, but you never know what you might find. You may have heard me chatting to one of the Simbombili guides, Tristan, asking for an update on what the Madash were doing. And Sharon, and possibly other new viewers, might want to know what that means. Sharon was wondering, is that code for wild dog? It's not exactly code, it's the local word for wild dog. Anything here? That is around the corner. So Sharon, very often guides will utilize the Shangaan terms, or sometimes occasionally a mixture of Zulu and Fadagalore, make its way into radio conversation. Fadagalore is the name given to a mishmash of the different languages, and it essentially is a good way of keeping that surprise going for your guests. All is quiet at Sydney's Dam. One hippo out of the water, one making its way out. It's going to slowly exit. We'll keep an eye out for James's crocodile as well. Fortunately, we don't have the super zoom capabilities that James has. Making their way for their nocturnal stroll. Time for an evening of feeding in the coolness after a very long, very hot day. It started off so promising with just that little bit of drizzle. It's one of the I think there's about 3 or 4 hippos remaining around Sydney's Dam. But yes, the day started out promising with a bit of drizzle, and the sun burnt through the clouds very early on. This hippo moving back towards the dam, and one shy kudu. There's also another hippo making his way out. You can see how the depth differs in different parts of the dams. It's interesting to see how once our larger dams like Buffelshoek Dam dried up, we could really get an idea as to the paths and the channels that the hippos had created moving about there. The kudu's coming down. Always pays to approach carefully, make sure that there's nobody waiting to ambush you, for example, a pack of wild dogs. Although I really think I might be pushing my luck at this point. And just to finish off with Sharon's question, it's a good way of keeping some of the sights that your guests might see a surprise on the radio. Also means that if you are far on the other side of the reserve, that your guests don't get disappointed if somebody calls in a leopard and you can't get there in time, depending on the situation. But you as Safari Live viewers get to enjoy a little bit of a background tour of the life of a safari guide. And as that hippo emerges from where it was submerged, Gert was wondering how deep Sydney's Dam is. And the answer, Gert, is, I would say, at the deepest point, probably close to about 6 feet deep, about 2 meters in the deepest point, might even be less than that at this point. And those hippos stand about 1.5 to close to 2 meters at the shoulder, not 2 meters, sorry, 1.5 meters to, 2 meters at the shoulder, maybe about a bit higher, a bit tall. And that hippo was submerged, so an estimate of 6 feet or 2 meters at its deepest point is probably not that far off for the depth of Sydney's Dam. And of course, as you all know, hippos cannot swim. They can control their buoyancy levels and they walk along the bottom of the dams, and they can push up to go and breathe in cases where the water's too deep for them to stick their nostrils up to the surface. But fascinating that an animal that is evolved for an almost aquatic existence is not able to actually physically swim. Their legs are just that bit too stubby, their body is too bulky, and that means they prefer to be around pools where they know they have shallow parts that they can spend the day resting. They also can't hold their breath for all that long. The average is about 5 to 6 minutes. I've timed a hippo that stayed under for 12 minutes before. Some of the larger ones can stay under for longer. But the average is about 5 or 6 minutes before they have to pop up and take a breath. And these hippos will walk all the way cover many, many miles this evening looking for grazing potential, and they are forced to cover more ground during this drought. A blacksmith lapwing letting us know why his name, or why they are called a blacksmith lapwing. Just listen to the sound he's making. Such a striking bird. And blacksmith, because it sounds like hammers on an anvil. Now Darlene is wondering, while we watch this little bird run across the ground, which bird would we consider to be the most intelligent? And she's suggested raven, which is not a bad guess, but they are birds of prey. Darlene, I'm just racking my brains trying to think of which bird I would suggest is the most intelligent. Maybe one of the... I'm hearing something. Hyenas calling. Hyenas calling off in the distance towards the den. Brent's picking up on the calls. Darlene, I'm just trying to think. Maybe some of the larger parrot species. They, of course, are known to have those incredible vocabularies, or they learn to speak with human vocabularies. That's fairly intelligent for a bird. I'm trying to think what else would be considered. Most birds are not, and of course the clearest example of this is the fallacy of the wise old owl. And in fact, with owls, and I'm saying, for some reason, South African accents, people don't always understand it when I say the word owl. I'm talking about the OWL, those birds of prey that fly at night. There's this fallacy that they're wise and very clever. With those enormous eyes, they actually take up so much room within their skulls that a lot of them are not all that intelligent as they're cracked up to be. I'm going to, I think, leave Sydney's Dam. It's starting to get dark. Get my spotlight out. Darlene, I'm going to try and figure out what other birds I would consider to be intelligent. Ravens certainly are. It's a good answer. They're known to have problem-solving skills. Indian miners is a very good example. Indian miners, which is an introduced species out here, a species of bird that doesn't really belong, and in fact has come through in a very clear way. It's been to the detriment of the local bird species. They've taken over the gardens in the big cities, for example, around Johannesburg. I know that we've got a huge problem with Indian miners, but they are very intelligent. And my best story, or my best example of that was when I was a child. There was a young Indian miner that had fallen into the swimming pool, and I pulled it out, and immediately the rest of the family started dive bombing and attacking me. And I promise you, for about, maybe a year is a slight exaggeration, for about 6 months after that incident, they would chase me every single time I went out into the garden. I don't know if it was because they remembered me, or if it was because I was a child, so I was an easier target, because they also used to dive bomb the dogs. But at the time, I really felt as though they had some kind of serious vendetta against me. It felt as though they knew it was me. What are the birds? I think the birds of prey are relatively intelligent, but also intelligent comes in different ways. So we might have our own definition of intelligence and learning, but the fact that birds can migrate, cover the distances, remember their way back to their nest sites year after year, after traveling hundreds and hundreds of miles, is something that still to me is quite a phenomenal ability. So that in its own way, maybe not intelligent, but a highly evolved instinct that comes into play. that's definitely one of the best examples of the bird's ability to think things through. And as we come across to the end of our sunset safari, it has been a beautiful evening, and I've enjoyed every moment, including the time spent with those peaceful elephant bulls at Arathusa. Tomorrow promises all kinds of exciting surprises. We don't know what it has in store for you, but I'm sure it will be nothing short of spectacular. A big thank you to Brent Leo Smith for his fantastic camera work. He's still doubtful. I think it's safe to say that you're not going to be resigning from your presenter position anytime soon.
Not in the
I think you might be seeing Brent back in the presenter's seat at some point. It is, however, the quietest I've ever known Brent to be whilst on a drive with me. It has been an interesting experience. I'm going to send you back across to James for the last few moments of the sunset safari. Have a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen.
A beautiful final scene here for us, the zebras walking silhouetted beautifully by that gorgeous orange, ginger and gold sky. Some clouds building. Again, they are not going to dump any rain on us, but they have provided us with a spectacular end to the evening. So that, of course, is a marula tree that they are standing underneath, and sadly they have produced very little in the way of fruit, the marula trees. I'm just going to try and slightly maneuver so that we get another view of the zebra. But the marula trees, again, because of the rain, have not produced anything in the way of fruit this year. Outside of the reserves and the communities, of course, people are not so much dependent on marulas as they are. I mean, this is an important time of year because the marulas do provide an important supplement to the sort of local diet, very rich in vitamin C, which is hard to come by out here. And so it has been a difficult time, like I said at the beginning of the drive, not only for the animals, but for the people of the area as well. Very beautiful. I'm just going to talk very quietly now. The zebras can be a little bit skittish around us, but they're very happy around us at the moment. And just listen to that quickly. Can you hear that? Beautiful last call of the night from a white-browed scrub robin. A hyena, look. Look, Brian, there's a hyena just behind them. You'll see it coming into the screen now. There. Oh, a creature of the night out foraging. Salivating, in fact. That is very unseemly for such a beautiful night. Isn't that just stunning? Heading back towards in the direction of the den. That's possibly a male that's been out all day. I'm not going to try and get any closer. Now watch as the herd of zebra, the adults move to put some space between the baby and the hyena, the predator, the second most dominant predator in the area. And the stallion there is going to follow the hyena and make sure it goes away. And the hyena has just started running across the road. They are not going to take any chances with the zebra. A zebra is a formidable enemy for something the size of a hyena. Oh, very, very stunning. Right, well, it's time for us to press on to go and enjoy our Friday night, as I hope you are all doing. Some of you will be on Saturday in Fiji, perhaps. In America, you're on Friday morning. I hope the day is a good one for you. Big thank you to all of our new viewers for your questions and comments. It's been wonderful to hear from you, and we love hearing from our new viewers and our old viewers too. But please remember to tell us where you're from. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Joe.
For your efforts. Thank you to Kirsty and Jerry in the final control. A big thank you to Brent and Jamie on the other vehicle. We will see you tomorrow morning at 05:30, bright and early. Well, it won't be that bright, but we'll see you then with happiness. See you then. Bye-bye.